Hi, let me introduce myself. I'm Desdemona Isabela Scarisoreanu, PhD student at University Politechnica of Bucharest. Let me allow to present the paper Strategic Forecast and Forecast Methods for Freight Rail Transport, drawn under the coordination of Professor Liviu Ghiculescu. The paper is dedicated to strategic forecast and forecast methods for freight rail transport, taking into account European Green Deal targets. According to the provision of European Green Deal, rail freight traffic is set to increase by 50% by 2030 compared to 2015. At present, road transport has a modal share of 68% of the total mode of transport, and rail transport has a share of 13%. Qualitative and quantitative forecast methods were used, such as Relevance Tree Method, Scenario Method, and Content Analysis Method. Regarding the Relevance Tree Method, the theme of the forecast was established in order to identify the solution for stimulating the rail freight traffic in Romania, so that a substantial part of the internal freight transport that is currently carried out in proportion of around 70% by road to be carried out in the future by rail and inland waterways. The second stage concerned the methods for increasing the rail freight traffic, and the third stage refers to the process that contribute to achievement of the objectives. Each method for increasing the rail freight traffic will be assigned a degree coefficient of relevance. Identically, degree will be assigned to the process. After the degree have been assigned to the process, products are calculated as you can see on the below table. The last step is to sort the product value in descending order. The highest value of the product is the most possible evolution of the case study. In the present, funds for modernization works of the railway infrastructure has the highest value. The resulting optimal version referred to the modernization of the railway infrastructure, which involves major works to modify the infrastructure, which will improve its overall performance. Thus, the interventions regarding the modernization of railway infrastructure are equivalent to those regarding the renewal from the perspective of returning to the normal maintenance cycles, but they are superior to them from the perspective of effects on the traffic speed on the railway infrastructure, because it also ensures the increase of the project speed of the railway infrastructure. Such interventions are much expensive than renewal, and therefore, in principle, such an option is used in the context of obligations assumed by Romanian states towards the EU regarding the modernization of TNT network, and especially the modernization of the European transport corridor infrastructure. By using the scenario method, two important landmarks will be analyzed: the main determinants of the general external environment and the specific impact factor that may determine the increase of rail freight traffic. The description of the existing environment is based on the established of the main determinants of the forecast phenomenon, respectively in the description of the existing environment is based on the establishment of the main determinants of the forecast phenomenon, respectively of the increase of rail freight traffic. The best analysis consists in examining the political, economic, social, cultural, and technological factors which constitute the macro environment and describe the overall picture of the environment in which the activity takes place, in this case, rail freight transport. Internal analysis is needed to be able to identify the main relevant determinants and afterwards the impact factor on the rail freight transport. Three scenarios are being constructed constructed so that the first will be development based on current trends, but will be adjusted to take into account future disruptive events, and the other two scenario will be project possible alternative vision into the future. Scenario number 1: development based on current multi-component trends, national and European legislative measures to support rail freight transport, European funding and grants for projects aimed to developing rail freight transport, and high dynamics of technological progress. European and national legislation encourages rail freight transport, but labor law stimulates the migration of employees from the state to private sector, to the detriment of state-owned rail freight undertaking, making it difficult for them to properly function. The main economic determinants have unfavorable actions. Social cultural determinants are generally unfavorable. Scenario number 2: stopping development due to political and economical dysfunctions. Against the background of political and economical dysfunctions which result in non-compliance with EU legislation, the EU imposes sanctions on Romania, leading to loss of EU funding, including due to the lack of funds for national co-financing of railway infrastructure projects. Economic determinants mark an economic decline at the national level. Social cultural determinants show that same negative trend of reducing the potential of human resources and decreasing consumption. At the technological level, or through the dynamics of development worldwide are still high. At the national level, there is a big gap in relation to the world level. Scenario number 3: strong development based on favorable economic trends. At the opposite end of the spectrum is the latest scenario, which by most determinants leads to an accelerated development of the rail freight sector. The impact factor represents the possible action that the main determinants of predicted phenomenon, increasing the rail freight traffic, exert on the rail freight sector will, with the help of the quality method of these scenarios. The determinant acts on the impact factor in opposite directions. For example, tax incentives to support rail freight transport are very important for rail freight undertakings, and EU trade policy to create better trade opportunities and remove barriers to trade stimulates international freight transport, including rail transport. The infusion of European funds can counterbalance to some extent high interest rates and rising inflation. However, increasing the cost of energy leads to higher cost on the entire economy. Impact factors are positioned in scenario matrix. The matrix includes two variables: the probability of occurrence of the phenomenon and its strategic importance. The index of impact factors corresponds to the three scenarios. In this case, the most likely scenario can be described as follows. Organization cost increased together with increasing of the financial resources and funding resources. The increase of the financial resources is closely linked to increase in funding resources with a focus on European funds allocated for the development of this sector. The bargaining power of purchaser of rolling stock plant and equipment will increase progressively in parallel with the supply of rolling stock plant and equipment and the source of financing. A real problem difficult to solve remains the continuous decrease of human resources and skills in the field. The solution is economic growth, a situation in which case the number of active population would increase by attracting the Romanian citizens who are currently going to work abroad and of the emigrants. The method is based on an analysis of content of information published in newspaper and magazine, in print or online, related to trends in the railway freight sector. Information published starting from 2016 to the end of January 2022 is analyzed in order to identify 10 major evolution trends. The analyzed topic refers to the actions that have been, are, or will be undertaken so that the railway freight traffic in Romania will increase. It's about improving the quality of rail infrastructure, improving rail traffic management, renewal of rolling stock with a new high-performance wagons and locomotive, and government policy to stimulate rail freight transport. The decentralization of the collected data indicates a fluctuation in the number of articles with a significant jump in 2021. The increased number of articles in 2021 is related to the number of construction sites opened that year by the Railway Infrastructure Manager, CFR-SA, for repair, maintenance and modernization works of the railway infrastructure. These are closely related to the financial allocation from the national budget, but also from European funds for accomplishment of these works. Conclusions. The Relevance Tree Method shows that the solution for stimulating the rail freight traffic in Romania, so that a substantial part of the internal freight transport currently performed on the road system to be transferred on the railway network, consists in increasing the allocation of funds for the modernization works of the railway infrastructure. The modernization of the railway infrastructure involves major works to modify the infrastructure, which will improve its overall performance. The scenario method shows that the most likely scenario can be described by: increase the cost of organizations involved the rail freight sector, while increasing financial resources and sources of funding. Increase of the financial resources, which is closely linked to the increase of funding sources, with a focus on European funds allocated for the development of this sector. The progressive increase of bargaining power of buyer of rolling stock, installation and equipment, in parallel with the increase of the supply offer of the rolling stock, installation and equipment, and with the sources of financing. These are closely linked to the progressive facilitation of access to know-how due to the high dynamics of the technological process, which lead to an increase in the moral wear and tear of equipment and to a decrease in their lifespan. The continuous decrease of human resources and of the competences in the field. The solution is economic growth, a situation in which case the number of active population would increase by attracting the Romanian citizens who are currently going to work abroad and of the emigrants. The reserve plan is as follows. In the event that the condition for the external development of rail freight organizations become very favorable, it is necessary to adopt measure in time to attract human resources in this area in order to increase competencies of organizations. This entails, on the one hand, motivating salary packages, including training programs, and, on the other hand, the strong use of access to know-how, which will be progressively facilitated by attracting European funds and participating in European projects. This will prevent severe wear and tear of rolling stock as well as the plant and equipment. The content analysis method shows that considering the analyzed topic, respectively the action that were, are, or will be undertaken so that the rail freight traffic in Romania to increase, the main conclusion can be drawn. European funds are allocated to the modernization of railway infrastructure, in particular for ensuring the connection with the port of Constanța, which is the terminus of the Rail Danube corridor of TNT Central Network. The modernization of railway tracks in the port of Constanța will increase the service capacity of the freight flow coming from the port, contributing both to the development of multimodal transport in Romania, and to the increase of the freight traffic volume on the Romanian railway network. In recent years, the CFR's budget for the maintenance and repair works of the railway infrastructure have been undersized, which has led to a progressive degradation and to the increase of general degree of wear of the infrastructure components. The current state of railway infrastructure is an important limited element of train performance. Therefore, European funds are the engine of development of railway infrastructure in Romania, the only solution to ensure the transfer of freight from road to rail. European funds were used to modernize part of Rin-Danube corridors. Thank you for your attention.